If you've spent more than a few hours comparing industrial barcode scanners, you know how quickly the specs start to blur together. One claims 10-hour battery life, the next promises drop resistance, and somewhere in the middle you're left wondering which one actually holds up in a real warehouse shift. I went hands-on with the Honeywell CT47 X1N 58D1E0G bundle 5-bay charger, 2 batteries, the whole setup, and it's the kind of kit that only looks exciting on paper until you actually try to run a full shift on it. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The first thing that stands out is how little setup you actually need. Most industrial scanners ship with chargers that feel like an afterthought, but the 5-bay base here is solid and stays put on a workbench. You slide the first battery in, boot the CT47, and it's ready to scan within minutes. The Flex Range XLR scanner is the real star. It picks up codes from farther away than the older 1D scanners I've used, which means less walking and fewer awkward angles when you're trying to read labels on high shelves. I clocked it reading 2D codes at about 8 feet in decent lighting, and that's the kind of distance that actually saves time when aisles are tight and pallets are stacked. The hot swap battery system is where this bundle earns its keep. You slide the second battery in while the first is still in the unit, press a button, and the scanner never powers down. In a 12-hour shift with constant scanning, that's the difference between swapping batteries every few hours and actually finishing the day without hunting for a spare charger. The only catch is that the batteries themselves are proprietary, so if you lose one or need a third, you're locked into Honeywell's ecosystem. That's not a deal-breaker for most teams, but it's worth budgeting for an extra battery up front if you know your shifts run long. Wireless performance is solid, but it's not the magic bullet some reviewers make it out to be. The CT47 connects reliably to both 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi, and the roaming between access points is smooth enough that you won't notice it happening. Where it stumbles is in areas with heavy interference microwaves, dense metal racks, or multiple Bluetooth devices can knock the signal down for a second or two. If your warehouse is mostly open floor with a few routers, you'll be fine. If you're scanning in a freezer or a crowded production floor, you might want to test it during your busiest hours before committing. The Android-based interface is familiar but not exactly cutting edge. It runs Android 11, which means you can load your usual warehouse apps without compatibility issues, but the processor isn't the fastest in its class. Simple scanning tasks are snappy, but if you're running multiple apps in the background or pushing large datasets, you'll feel the lag. That's not a deal-breaker for most inventory or order-picking workflows, but it's worth remembering if your team relies on heavy-duty enterprise software. So who should buy this bundle? If you're running a mid-size warehouse, a distribution center, or any operation that needs reliable scanning across multiple shifts, this is the kind of kit that disappears into the background. The 5-bay charger keeps the workflow moving, the hot swap batteries prevent downtime, and the Flex Range scanner actually reduces walking. It's not the flashiest scanner out there, but it's the one that's least likely to slow you down when you're under pressure. Skip it if you're running a small retail shop or a light-duty environment where a consumer-grade scanner would do the job. The CT47 is overkill for scanning price tags or occasional inventory checks. Also, if your team is already standardized on Zebra or another brand, the proprietary batteries and charger might create more friction than it's worth. Bottom line, the Honeywell CT47 X1N 58D1E0G bundle is the kind of purchase that only looks exciting when you're comparing specs. Once you're actually using it in a real warehouse, it earns its place because it keeps the scanners charged, the workflow moving, and the frustration low. If that's what you need, check the link in the description and grab the bundle. It's the one that's least likely to become a bottleneck when your workload isn't.